All right. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of LunarCRUSH Live. And it did work on Twitter this time and Periscope. So we're live here. And we've got Pavel Bains from Bluzelle. Hey, man, how are you today?
Hey, Joe. Hey, John. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for visiting us all the way from Singapore. We appreciate you staying up late with us.
Well, like I said, it worked out nicely. I was actually earlier out with a bunch of crypto guys playing poker. So this worked out well. I was like, hey, I have a call and interviewed at midnight, so I can play till 11:30 and then go over there. So it was a nice segue, crypto to crypto.
Is it a high stakes game, one Bitcoin per hand, or what's going on over there?
No, we can't do that. We still do it just to break balls and have fun. So it's just like low limit. But we have a thing that if you sign up and you don't show up, you're penalized like 0.1 ETH.
Ooh, okay.
That goes into the pool and everybody splits up. So you have to be committed.
I like that. That kind of creates, make sure everyone gets there for the game so they don't ruin it for everyone else.
That's right.
Nice. Cool, man. So just before we get started, just a reminder, everyone, we do not take payment for these live streams. We bring on fun people that are working on exciting projects around the world. Make sure you get your questions in there for Pavel, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. And then, like we always say, slam that subscribe button. We got some fun streams coming up in the future here. So welcome, everyone. So Pavel, tell us how'd you get into crypto, man? What kind of sparked your interest? What was your aha moment? Why do you love it?
Yeah, it's so my background is actually from video games. So used to work for Electronic Arts, Microsoft, Disney, Interactive, did a whole bunch of stuff in that area, just AAA, Sony, Xbox games, which was a blast. Eventually got kind of tired of it, say I got to do something new. And then, just like 2015, 2016, just, reading some stuff about Bitcoin. What's this all about? Same as everybody else. Oh, wait, this is really interesting. So because going to school and video games, it kind of, I studied political science, economics, distributed computing. I was into, my degree was in finance. So it was like, whoa, there's just like this one product that actually captures every single thing that I'm into. And so that kind of just blew me away. And then like everybody else, you just go down the rabbit hole and saying, what more is in there? And you just peel back the layers and it's like, wow, this thing is amazing.
Yeah, it's like it's similar story to myself of just the kind of like this intersection of finance and technology. And then once you dig in a little bit further, you realize like, holy crap, this could like disrupt every single process on the planet. And you just kind of dive a little bit deeper. What games do you play? Do you still play them?
I've got kids, so it's hard to
explain what they play.
Hard to play. I mean, they're all into Roblox and more these social interactive games, where I grew up mainly on, the first-person shooter, action adventure games. Right. So, and then those also, you got to sit down and commit yourself for hours. And all of us in crypto, we don't have this time to sit for 3 hours and just play through, let's say, a Zelda game or at a time.
Yeah, you don't have the time to level up like an EverQuest player from 1 to 60 over the course of 4 years and dedicate your entire life and not sleep.
Exactly.
Can't say I have any experience doing that. So
we've got 45 minutes. Let's play Zelda.
Yeah, what are we going to accomplish in that, right?
Let's do that.
Many years on those games, which is super fun. But it's a cool thread because you see a lot of people in the crypto space that kind of came out of gaming or at least played a lot of games, and it's more of this kind of like edge to everyone in this space that there's a strategy to that, right? And there's an intensity to learning how to make your computer go as fast as humanly possible and overclocking the hard drive or the processor so that you can get a little edge and everything. And it's like you're deep diving into software and into hardware, and so sometimes that's kind of how we learn when we're younger.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because gaming and going on to those edges, like you're trying to discover more and more, which is really what crypto is. You're always trying to discover more and find those edges. That's why you've got that really interesting overlap. And then when it comes to marketing and consumer, you're actually, you got pure. This is what I found so fascinating about the space is that the stuff I do with Bluzelle, like basically it's really tech nerdy stuff, my CTO's vision, but you can market it like we do, like I did in the video game industry, and you could do certain things that are fun and people like, even though like if I work for MongoDB or AWS or Oracle, Oracle system, you can never do some of the stuff that we're able to do on, community driven, get them involved, drop NFTs just to get excitement and have them corralling behind your brand and product. So that's why you've got that video game culture mix, which is cool.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot with creating that community around around your token, which is like, kind of incentivizing people and creating that community, but then also around your mission, right? And what you're working on and kind of creating that. So yeah, man. So tell us, like, what was the event that, what kind of triggered you to start Bluzelle? You see the AWS of the world, you see a lot of the cloud that's out there. I think speed is always a question, with file storage with a blockchain, and it's different than, so like to help people delineate also, like, this is not like Dropbox, for crypto, right? This is like actual distributed, like, scaling system. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what triggered it and what is Bluzelle?
Yeah, it's one of those things where, we're almost too dumb to realize what we came into, or a bit off more, maybe because this is just a crypto mindset. So it was, how it happened was, so Bluzelle, technically, we were starting doing financial blockchain type of services to banks and insurance companies. And we're in Singapore, got a bunch of gigs. As we were working on something for 3 of the major banks here, we realized it was a KYC, know your customer, kind of validation system on the blockchain. And there's one that was flight insurance on the blockchain, travel insurance. When we realized that as we were collecting data, we could ensure that transactions and authentication, but the real data of the customers, hey, those are still sitting on a centralized system. They're, we're using, I think, Microsoft Azure then for them, because the banks wanted that. And we're like, wait, there's a problem here. If everything else is distributed, but this is centralized, the core database, if that goes down, then everything suffers. So it was one of those ones where it's like, we ran into that problem. This could be cool. And once again, don't really fully think it out that, wait, you're fighting off a lot to take on these big companies, but it's crypto, right? You have the sheer will and belief that we'll pull it off and figure it out. So that's really came down to that. Now, the big question, as you say, is, well, you can store data on the blockchain, but the blockchain wasn't meant to store large amounts of data that are for processing and things like that. It would slow it down. We know all the scaling issues. So that's why you had Web3 and infrastructure come out and saying, let's decentralize that and have these areas just focus strictly on, let's say, data storage or file storage, and go up against, AWS and MongoDB and these companies.
So these are well-established, like, players in the space. Where is the demand for decentralization coming from?
Yeah, so I think initially when we first launched just over 3 years ago, I think there's a lot of Web3 infrastructure projects that came along, and I think we all, because Bitcoin was at 20 grand, everything was riding, momentum was there. So I think everybody in this space at that time that thought everything was going to move to the blockchain. I think we all were just way too early in certain sectors, and so hey, the demand wasn't there. And it really went into almost like a 3-year building period and saying, let's just stay focused, get this out, and need the product, let the market catch up to us. So a good parallel, I would say, is, DEXs launched right then, but there was no volume. Nobody was using them. Why would you use it? And we're like, oh, are these dead? But it really just took 2 years till everybody caught up, saw they were battle tested, and say, we need those now. So I think with Web3 infrastructure projects like ourselves, I think now they're starting to see that DEXs are decentralized. Other things are going to need to be decentralized and have storage. And people are saying things around the world of, censorship has taken over all of, certain products. AWS, Netflix are going down quite often. I'm from Canada. Rogers Wireless, the biggest mobile carrier in the country, went down yesterday, and nobody could actually send text messages or get phone calls. So I think the awareness coming out that, hey, these centralized systems aren't working. So I think now the time is that, hey, more people start using them, battle testing, decentralized infrastructure like ourselves. And so everybody will catch up, just like DeFi did, or DEXs.
And do you see, which spaces do you see that are more ready now versus maybe less ready now?
The areas that we're focused on would be, okay, where's all the applications right now? Obviously, it's in DeFi. So, hey, as they get more data and we can support that and have decentralized systems or data storage there, that's big. NFTs, content, because you can own the NFT But what about the data that actually recognize the NFT or the file that represents that NFT? If that's sitting on an AWS system and that goes down, sure, I know I own it on Ethereum, but the product's actually gone. So that's another use case that we're working with a bunch of NFT platforms now to say, hey, how can we guarantee a seal that Bluzelle, hey, it's stored on Bluzelle, it's safe, you're good. So I think we just got to follow the market of what are the applications people are using. And then as those start getting used, those platforms realizing, hey, we better start doing some of this in a decentralized infrastructure to save it. And then the other ones would be content. So censorship resistance, like, you know, I agree that, hey, hate crimes aren't good, this and that, but I also believe that, hey, social media platforms, it's a slippery slope. Like all of a sudden, like if, I don't know, if Jack Dorsey decides that I'm a pure vegan, anything that meat eaters is against my beliefs, so I'm shutting down all those accounts. I mean, he's really just chosen that you can pick and choose, where if a group is, I fundamentally believe that if you ban something, it will automatically bring more attention and awareness. So, I mean, I grew up listening to hardcore rap music. It was banned and people said, don't listen to Two Live Crew. It was banned by it. What I do, I went and listened to Two Live Crew, right?
Yeah.
So if you take it to a level of censorship, that if somebody feels ostracized and all of a sudden it's, even though we know it's hateful, but it's ostracized and banned, you're actually appealing to a certain group, wondering why it is, and then they're going to get bigger and louder because they feel oppressed. Where if you keep it out in the open, the majority of the public will just weed it out. So hence, going back to it, censorship resistance, powering those applications where, yeah, let the people agree it out and let it be out there forever, right?
And just like touching on that a little bit is just data, right? Your own data that you can give access to when you want other people to have access to it. And you know, I think I heard you talking a little bit in a different interview about, you know, the Facebooks and the Googles of the world and how they're monetizing. You know, if you're not paying for a product, you're the product. Just talk a little bit about like how this changes, because this is like one of the last missing pieces, I feel like, of the crypto and decentralized ecosystem. So talk about how like this kind of pulls the pendulum back into the power of the consumer.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple of protocols like, you know, Ocean that's been focusing on that, and then we would be, you know, supportive on the infrastructure layer. Is this whole concept for the last couple of years? I remember we were talking about it with them, of data as a currency, right? How do you, you know, Joe and John, you guys have your data out there, it's being used. Well, what if there's a way that you can feel assured that, hey, I have access to it, and maybe, hey, Facebook or Instagram, you want to make some money on it? Sure, but let me see where you're selling that data or who it's to. So let's just say they do a deal with Nike. Joe or John, you should be able to click off and say, yeah, I authorize Nike to access my data wallet, let's say. And that could be sold on a marketplace. It could be stored on Bluzelle. And that's all sitting there. And then you go, okay, I'm making some revenue off of that. And if Nike does something that you don't really like or are down with, you can say, you know what, I shut off access to my wallet for that. And, you know, pick somebody else. So really the whole thing is, as the people demand it and the tools are out there that gives you control, you should be able to do that and partner with these companies. You know, they should look at you as business partners, right? The individual.
Yeah. I like the example, and I think, and correct me on the exact quote, but the example you gave about like robbing a store, right? If I walk into a convenience store and I give them $10 to buy a couple of candy bars and I walk out and that store gets robbed, my money is gone and they took my money, but they don't know anything else about me, right? They have that currency. If Facebook gets hacked, right? I use Facebook and then I walk out of Facebook, I don't use Facebook again, they get hacked. And now that person has all of my data, right? And it's like, that was such a simple example, but I think so pivotal with that. People don't realize that when you're logging into some of these services, your data is there forever.
And then there's no accountability on that other side, right? Like you said, the store example, Facebook says, hey, it happened, what can we do? It's like, well, you should have wiped it out as soon as we do. So that's one of the concepts we have and we talk to others about, you know, moving forward, is that, let's say, Joe, you're on Facebook and you go, you know what, I'm out of here now. Delete. It should be authenticated on the blockchain or wherever it's stored that you were able to authenticate that it was all got wiped out and almost have a receipt of that. So if something does come out later, and Facebook did some shenanigans, you can be like, hey, I've got a receipt on the blockchain that said this was all wiped out. Deny that to me now, right?
So what happens to these centralized entities? Like, it's obviously hard to build the social fabric of like a Twitter or a Facebook, but they're ultra centralized. So how do you kind of see this? Are we about to have a battle here? Or do these central entities go away and built by something new, How do you see the future unfolding?
I don't think it's going to be a full-on battle. I think what will happen is they'll see that all the companies like ourselves and others in the industry, like, we're battle testing, we're proving the ground. And eventually, as I see, customers starting getting smarter or rising up, and they'll say, hey, the trend is over there. I think they'll just morph into it and saying, okay, which platforms are working out there? Let's either partner up with them, run across them, or just maybe potentially even buy it out. But I think they're probably watching and saying, okay, just like how banks and fund companies are watching DeFi and seeing what's going on, I don't think a Goldman Sachs or JP Morgans are ever going to go. What they'll end up being is just, hey, we have the customers. We're like Spotify. DeFi, you guys are all the record labels and you need the customers. We'll bring them to you and you just provide us everything else. So I could see that happening, morphing.
So like a hybrid, almost like you could choose to use a decentralized identity or decentralized storage, or like it's almost like I'm just trying to imagine, like, what does Twitter look like in 10 years from now if decentralized apps kind of start to take over more? Is it like the same Twitter with different things plugged in that are sort of making it pseudo decentralized, or is it something entirely new, like a completely like let's start over again? Just trying to understand. I'm wondering what that ends up looking like.
I think I go with your latter. I think it'll be it won't be hacked together. It'll be completely revamped and saying, okay, we've got the brand recognition, we can survive. Or, I look at my kids, maybe they'll, these guys are growing up in, a different world of understanding things. So they will probably grow up and saying, hey, we just don't like these companies, period. And there could be if Twitter doesn't go that way, they could be completely obsolete and replaced by that, that Gen Z's coming up.
So I wonder. Go ahead, Joe. Well, I have a big question too. I mean, we keep talking about Web3, and it seems like ultimately, like, we end up talking about government, and we end up like, in this world of like user controlled applications, where these central entities, can't ban accounts like you were referring to earlier. They can't, we see it all the time on Twitter. People randomly just, their accounts are disabled, and they don't even know why. Sometimes
most are decent people, right?
Right. They're great.
It's some sort of crowdsourced blocking that happens, or something that's beyond their control, right? Like, it's not even necessarily Twitter doing that, right? It's crazy.
And I promise to not get political, but certain presidents' accounts getting blocked and everything, right? And like, we get to a level of like, okay, cool. Now the users have the control. Twitter doesn't have the control as a private business. Governments can't speak up and have some sort of congressional committee to decide to ban someone or anything like that. Like how does this unfold with governments when they lose all that central control?
I mean, let's look at history, right? I think all of this is coming to a head. It's inevitable now, right? It's everybody is getting really, I won't say everybody, but it is a growing resentment or sentiment of people getting tired of existing systems, how they're used, and might not happen in the next. We're all crypto, so we always think things are going to go faster. They'll probably take longer, but I think that trend is going there, where it's like mistrust in governments, and we don't want to get political, but I mean things of, Western governments have royally. I'm from Vancouver, and they're on their fourth wave of COVID when they kept telling people. It's like when you play sports and you have the coach and your team's not doing well, but he's always saying, come on, if we just really rally together, we can do it. But you keep losing and losing. At some point, you just tune the coach out and say, I'm tired of your motivational speech. You need to go somewhere else. And that's where some of the doctors, in Vancouver and Canada and the medical people are going. It's like, we're just tired of this. Mm-hmm. So going through that, it's like, I don't know, it's weird. It's like now I've come to the realization that everything's off the table. Like when you're talking about, digital natives, do they belong to a government? Do new cloud communities come up? That's not off the table. Like now I believe, hey, it could happen, right? Let's not write these off as crazy concept ideas. They might be coming.
It's almost like by like a side effect of giving everyone control of their own data are these other things, right? It's not like you're direct, like I think people look at, decentralization or creating a decentralized social network by like, hey, it's all about being like censor resistant. It's like, I think censor resistance, like a side effect of like giving me control of my data and where I want to go. Right. It's not like necessarily like the pinnacle or the reason that some of this stuff is starting. It's like there's probably a better community that's growing when it's decentralized and when there's governance to it that's spread out. I think like a good example is like, I know we're all trying not to get political and we say that, but it all kind of comes back to like, this is just such an issue or such a topic that this is like the last thing to talk about, but it's like voting, right? Like in the United States, we used to send people to DC because that was a long trip, right? And you would choose someone that you thought was like-minded to yourself that would represent your area and your interests to go and do that. Now you have a mobile phone and I instantly can get data 24/7, 365. Why can't I spend 20 minutes out of my day digesting a video about what is being voted on or what are the topics that are on it? So it's like this kind of decentralized system of storage is the last piece that like allows us to do that. But I think my point is like all of those other things are just like side effects of a better system.
You know what? That's a really good way to put it. They are. It's about power and control to yourself, right? You're gaining more power and control over these things, which is really valid. And touching on what you said about technology and, voting and even finance is a good example. Is technology went like this, but we're all still operating on archaic legacy systems from 100 years ago of just the way it was done. So like I said, well, if we need to send somebody to represent me there, well, why not? If I'm just online, well, what if I can vote into certain things or somebody there just has to be a more efficient way than, because you said you couldn't travel everywhere and not everybody could show up at the same place.
Right.
So it's a really good way to look at it, that the systems haven't evolved where the place of technology and how information is going. So, I mean, side tangent, a good example would be everybody used to talk about value investing, the Warren Buffett way. Yeah, that worked when you could only get information from a newspaper or newsletters that you're a fund that subscribed to and you couldn't digest it easily online. As soon as I was able to get information really quickly, get those earning reports, look at financials 10 years back of any company, I can do the analysis quickly. So value investing, that long term doesn't hold. Momentum is better because growth companies go through cycles, right? So that just shows how information should change and hasn't affected different parts of our society, as you brought up.
Yeah, no, it's a great topic. And I want to kind of come back to your like Bluzelle and your project and talk a little bit more like, so it's like you guys are, it looks like you've built like the token on top of Ethereum. It looks like there's a lot of different stuff that you guys are doing. Can you tell just like your ecosystem and how it's brought together and like how would LunarCRUSH get started? Building, it's like, hey, we were going to re-platform, we're on AWS or we're on Azure, we're on SoftLayer, which I don't think is a thing anymore. It's IBM, but like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So the core of it is, Bluzelle, the core is a data storage database. So not going to nerd stuff, but it's like key value pair, right? And no SQL, key value pair. It's really good for, holding, good amounts of data, whether it's, content, finance, consumer information, things like that, retail shopping. And so that you got that part. Now it's validated. Now the blockchain behind it, we built it off Cosmos SDK. So that means all our validators are, we've got our own blockchain, Bluzelle Net. So what that does is anytime, let's say LunarCRUSH, you guys, let's say your customer service list of all the people who, subscribe or use it, you've got the information, their email addresses, you store it on Bluzelle. Anytime it gets updated, it goes to our validators, right? And they make sure that, hey, is this really the private keys of, maybe John, Joe, you both have access to it. Hey, did they validate it? Did they make this change, update, delete, everything? Then all the nodes would say, yep, they're the ones. So that way we are sure that no one else can hack into it. And now what the key thing is, what you get out of that is because each zone, so what we mean is, let's say if Bluzelle is a universe, you have a bunch of solar systems within them. So one solar system would have 13 planets or 13 nodes. So that means your data that you have is automatically replicated 13 times. Where if you go to AWS or MongoDB, you got to pay for more replication. So you got 13 layers of replication. So even if one of the nodes goes down, the other 12 are all up and they're scattered throughout the world. So you're always going to be available. Your data is always going to be safe because even if something goes down, it's replicated everywhere. And you can scale up, scale down as you need.
And so how does the token work within this ecosystem? How does that all come together? Okay,
so the token is really, it's a security layer. So every time, the data is changed or updated, a small fee is done and that goes to the validators who approve all that, they share in that token, in the BLC that they earned for that. And then what we'll do is find different use cases of BLZ. So, we're going to be providing decentralized Oracle services so the validator can earn money, not just for storing, but also getting the price feed. So that's really how the token works.
I think that's a good clarification because it's like, some people and some of the stuff that I was reading and like kind of giving you a chance to clarify some of that is why I asked the question is people are like, oh, they're like this, like I'm looking on Etherscan and it looks like these certain things have happened and there doesn't look like there's a lot of transactions, but in reality, you're using Cosmos for a lot of the decentralization and you're using, Ethereum to interface with the token and interface with the community. And I think what people need to realize going into the future is that most of these companies of the future are going to have some sort of like multi-token system that enables them to interact more efficiently than a traditional company would, right? And it's like really understanding that full ecosystem and how it's all working together. And I think, more companies are going to start doing what you're doing along these lines in the future.
Yeah, and then along with that, like I think we've seen now with, Solana coming up, Polkadot, BSC, Binance Smart Chain taking off, that, hey, it is going to be a multi-chain world. And our goal, Bluzelle, is to just focus on developers of what they need. So we need to be bridged into all these chains and be interoperable. So, the entry might be one token, but what goes on within it could be other tokens and swapping all over the place.
Yeah. No, makes sense. And so it says you have on here 10,000 transactions per second. What does that compare to like a layman like myself with like a AWS EC2 instance or like any other, like where are we at in regards to, and I know it's going to take time. Like we don't just launch something and it's equal to like, AWS, but where is that at or where does that stand right now?
Well, we would be, so on two parts. So on a database, there's reads and writes. So you can read our data just as fast, probably, we've tested it even faster than, MongoDB or AWS DynamoDB does because it's decentralized, less layers. You can just ping it, at the closest location right to you. For the time being, writes will take longer. So write means that, hey, here's my customer email list, save it onto the database for it to get stored on there. That's probably one of the drawbacks right now is that, hey, the writing isn't as fast as AWS for the time being, but the trade-off is that, hey, it's censorship resistance, it's, it's it's always available, it's super secure. So maybe writes take a bit slower for the time being, but like you said, eventually, we'll get there as well as the technology gets better.
Right. Do we get to a point where it's even more efficient than an AWS because it is more decentralized and there are going to be more interoperability? It's like, you could say like, hey, AWS built some servers in Australia and yeah, it's fast there in, Sydney, but it's not as fast like in Perth or something, for example. Do we get to a place where, obviously like crypto is forcing itself to be more decentralized. There's more, layers in different places. Does it get faster?
That one we will. So like I said, on the one aspect, even right now, we've done tests that we're faster because we're reading. And, let's just say, your user is in, I don't know, let's say San Francisco, but AWS's servers that they're hosted on might be on the East Coast of the US. So there is some lag there, especially if you're playing video games, that might be a fact. But if it's on the Bluzelle network, it could be like, hey, you know what? A bunch of nodes are just stored that's running that is like right down the street or within the same state. They'll just ping it there automatically because everything's replicated everywhere else. So theoretically, we're probably faster right now, or we'll definitely be there.
Interesting.
So on that note, what are some of the things that the community can look forward to with Bluzelle, and I guess what does the future look like?
Yeah, right now, like the Mainnet came out, so we've got a bunch of developers. We've got a developer program going on because we can't think of all the killer use cases. And frankly, I think even if we look at, you got to kind of let these ecosystems evolve and see which is the killer app or use case. So, we're hoping, people 1 to 5 person teams can, come on board, submit something, and we could say, yeah, we can give some money to get them going, because who knows what that next idea will be. Like Uniswap emerged same way out of Ethereum, right? So that internally, the big products that we're focusing on is an Oracle product, a decentralized Oracle, because advantage we have over other ones like Band or Chainlink is because we have the decentralized database, a storage layer, we can actually keep a history of price feeds and index the data. And not to make it overly complex, what that means is if you're a DeFi app, you can actually do statistical analysis and get security warnings really early by the way we based it. Basically, you can almost foresee or prevent a flash loan attack much faster because you can compare to historical prices and run certain algorithms that we got planned. So internally, we're trying to make that our killer app. And we've already signed up with a bunch of DeFi products out there, like Equilibrium, Reef, a whole bunch of other ones, Tidal Finance. So the goal is, hey, they start using the oracles. They like the whole aspect of it being decentralized. It offers something different than other oracle providers. So that's going to be key. And then aside from that, our whole goal right now is just, start, like we just announced that we're going to be supporting Binance Smart Chain in a couple of weeks. It's just finding where's the developers going, where are they, and let's just build the interoperability layer so we can be the data storage layer for them. Hence why we're working with Cosmos, Polkadot, and then BSC.
Very cool. So interoperability, multiple chains, go where the developers are, and sounds like you're doing a lot with oracles. That's awesome, with your own oracle.
Yeah.
So very cool.
Right.
Very cool. You talked a lot about, I guess that developer community. I'd love to just kind of maybe switch a little bit to talk about just the overall general community and maybe on the marketing side. So like tell us a little bit about your marketing efforts and, where you guys focus.
Yeah, it's, I'll go back a year ago. So, crypto winter, just like for most, just yes, it wasn't fun, right? You just were pulling your hair out and, just.
What are you talking about? I loved every second of that.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? We're all stronger now. So what was cool was, we had good community members who were in it from a long time ago, which was like, when we were just like almost even just at a cent or under a cent. But, they stuck by it. And then we just got into about a year ago saying, hey, you know what? Instead of doing these long roadmaps at that time, we said, let's just, and it was even internally for the team, let's just get into focus on 1 month. Let's just get into a pattern of delivering and having success, and success breeds success, right? So once we did that for a few months, you're feeling good, the team is, the community seeing it. And then we're like, let's make a 3-month plan, or let's go do oracles now. And at that time, more of the community is coming on, supporting it and seeing that, hey, we're constantly delivering, going out. And then as that's going, the price is going up, which brings more attention and more projects are signing up. So it was really critical that the case was first, just consistently start delivering things. And then it was really about making sure we have enough, ambassadors, people behind us, communication channels that can amplify that noise, and working with those type of partners. So I think that was really critical and was really helpful.
And are they focused? I guess what channels are you focused on? Obviously Twitter, but anywhere else?
Twitter, Telegram, Discord has become good for us, especially on the developers and validator side. My team likes that. The tech team likes that because it's a great communication tool with the people coming on, asking questions, and we all know that. And it's like you're getting instant support. Like I say, if somebody asks me, "Hey, I'm having trouble," I'm like, "Go to our Discord," because the team is actually there more often, and they'll reply pretty quickly for that.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah, it seems like Telegram's just turned into a place for just like announcements, right? You can't
Yeah.
really interface with your customers, and with Discord, at least you can kind of parse out the different, layer, like marketing, support, general, shove the price talk somewhere else. And so it allows you to do a little bit more when it comes to that. And I like what you said around kind of the roadmap. I feel like in 2017, people would just come out with these massive roadmaps, right? And when we think about like the different projects out there, it's always, these are just, everyone's a startup, right? And it's just a new way to launch a startup, right? And so as a startup, yeah, you could try to put together a 5-year plan. There's no way in hell you're right? Like you only know what's kind of in front of your face, and you have to pivot quickly. So it's like, I feel like that kind of forced everyone to, really just focus on building and saying like, what can we deliver in the next 3 months? And, then you're announcing more, you're shipping product more. And it's, I don't think people realize when you start a cryptocurrency project, you're basically just going public on the first day you launch. Right. And it's like, that's a lot for a new founder to take in.
Yeah, it's definitely a different mindset. It's much harder. So to a typical startup, like you said, one is in crypto, you're building these long roadmaps of unused, untested tech that's still constantly evolving. So that makes it twice as hard of like, we're going down the path. Oh my God, that's not ready, or it's not working. We have to go in this direction, because this is all stuff being built at the same time, right? It's like we're building the roads and trying to drive at the same time. Typical startups don't really have to do that. And like I said, the community public side of it, it's actually different from if you're a public company, you actually have an investor relations group, and you have these investors who call that once in a month or get their newsletter, and they just kind of follow along. Where in crypto, you have you're public, but it's community members who can actually reach out to you, and it's way more engaging. So yeah, it's a whole different beast running a crypto project.
It's also tough. I mean, we were chatting earlier, but it's kind of like you're building long term. You're building for your roadmap. You're building for the future in mind. And crypto, I'll specifically pick on crypto. Twitter is impatient. They want everything, and they want it right now. And it's a balance, right? It's a tough thing to constantly, and it's all moving fast. Everything's moving fast. So that's tough.
Yeah, and I understand both sides too. If you're a token holder coming in, you're excited and you're seeing progress, and you're really I guess the one thing, it shows passion, right? And they're just really committed to like, hey, we want to see it progress, and can we go faster? But then they also don't understand that, hey, these things do take a long time. So it's a constant balancing act. And I think the projects that can do it, I mean, hats off to everybody who went through and is still in it.
Yeah, I think there's some of the best and smartest founders in the world are working in this space, and because there's so much that needs to go on their shoulders, and they're the people that can handle that well. It's really an insane proving ground.
I mean, let's not even give smarts that much. I would say I think we have the most resilient.
Yeah, persistent
and the persistent. So, guys who are willing to dive into a fire and go through battle, right? And often that, the smartest guys sometimes, are the most scared people to go try something. I personally know that. I'm sure you guys know a bunch of people like that as well, right? Yep. So the guys in crypto are basically, hey, they might not be as smart as those other guys, but they're fearless. So, and that often wins out in the long run.
100%, man. That's so true. That's so true. We left nice, stable jobs. Really great paying, nice, stable jobs.
Maybe we're just the dumbest people in the room, and we don't realize it.
So before the market started turning around, let's say, last July, May, or after the halving, I remember in February, when 2020, I was at an event somewhere, and then I was catching up with somebody, and I said the same thing. And this is where we were all still wondering, oh my God, what's happening, right? And I said, either we're just like the smartest guys out there or the stupidest guys out there. And he said, no, there's a third S. I said, what? He goes, stubborn.
Yeah.
That's what it is. We're just all absolutely stubborn to just die on this hill for it. And maybe that explains it all.
It is true. I remember going to conferences when Super Bowl market, and then it's falling, and then it just kept getting worse. And then companies started running out of money. And you started to see, you go to the exhibition floor at a conference, and it's wait a minute, it's 20% as many booths are here. oh, wait a minute, those are like the OG people from way back in the day that are only here. Wait a minute, where did everyone go? There's no more tokens.
Yeah.
All these ICOs are gone. What happened? And so, and it's funny because now a lot of those are really big companies. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting times for sure.
Survivability, man. Often that's what wins out.
So
Yeah.
I mean, a funny story just to relate to that.
Yeah, go for it.
This tangent is one of a mentor of mine, advisor. He told me a company he was running. This was years ago. They were third best in their category, and could never third or fourth. And they were literally hemorrhaging money. They couldn't break into 1 or 2, and it was one of those ones where only 1 and 2 win. And so he's like, we were almost basically like ready to shut the doors down and just trying to survive this and that. Then all of a sudden, he goes, 1 and 2 got bought out by somebody. The companies that bought number 1 and 2 changed the direction. So we ended up being the only one really servicing that need. And he goes, just because of just survivability and willing to timing and being able to survive long enough, we went from third to number 1. We went to the verge of shutting down. Super success, huge valuation, and got bought out after. So sometimes he said, you just got to survive.
Love that. That's great.
Yeah. And a little bit of luck.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I have a question because I'll just show you because I was looking at the top influencers. In fact, maybe I should just give a shout out to the top Bluzelle influencers here on our site. But Bluzelle HQ stacking USD. This is over the last year. Life Madame, who I actually see as a question in the chat. There you are, Pavel.
Yeah.
We got Pranks, Venturesome, Barry Brains, Dope Boy Rappy, Freddie Obi-Wan, Rahul Charashia, and ICO Drop. So this is over the last year, and it's based on engagement, activity, and relative following. But I was curious because I saw this on your header, your March to Mainnet. Tell us a little bit more about what that is.
Oh yeah, we've got to update that. So it was as our mainnet was coming out, we wanted to have some more fun with it, and it was called Hey. So we had this whole thing of Bluzelle, the Bluzelle soldiers, and then when we were doing our testnet competition, so instead of having Call of Duty, we called it Swarm of Duty because Bluzelle initially was designed was when I said we had all these zones, they were called swarms of computers all storing data. So we just ran with that whole thing of Swarm of Duty. We had Swarm of Duty 1, Swarm of Duty 2, which were validator competitions. And then as we're going from when we passed the testnet phase, the competitions were like, okay, now we're going to mainnet. And so just kept running with that Call of Duty theme saying March to mainnet. Now that we did that, it's funny enough, in a couple of weeks, we've just been working on a whole, what's next, what you guys said, what's next for Bluzelle? What's the next phase? I think we've done really good milestones, and we kind of just want to do a refresh of the brand, evolve what we've been over the past 3 years, where we see the future going, like the past meets the future, how data is going. So all of that's going to be redesigned, and we'll be unveiling that in a couple of weeks, the new kind of the refresh brand overhaul for Bluzelle.
Oh, very cool.
And with that, we've been launching NFTs that kind of hint at the design direction and concepts that we have going on. So we've been doing that for the past 4 weeks at a new NFT each week. Our loyal, community members can win them. And if you collect all 4, we're going to give a special 5th one to the people who got all 4 of them.
That is very cool. Love it. Yeah, there's a lot of questions in here about like, when's the new website coming up? When's the new logo change? So that is cool.
Yeah. And so how, so you mentioned like refinance and a couple others that were starting to kind of utilize the service. I mean, how are you guys, like, what was the rub there? Why did they say, hey, we're going to go with Bluzelle, we're going to start using this? How are you guys kind of going out to these customers? What's like the pitch a little bit to them, and how kind of getting their, dipping their toes in to start utilizing the service?
Yeah. So when it comes to the storage layer is pretty self-explanatory. As they move off, let's say, centralized systems, and our stuff gets more battle tested, they want to go more decentralized for the infrastructure stack. With the oracles, it was really what we discovered was that customers or these projects, they don't want to be reliant on just one oracle because who knows what could happen, it could go down. So they want to rely on, let's say, three or 4. And then as long as, they're meeting different needs, it's really compelling. So when we told them that, hey, we have a decentralized database, we index the data, and here's kind of the the 5-step algorithm that we do that can ensure better security and heightened awareness, that was enough for them to be like, yeah, okay, we want to make that as one of the things.
Gotcha. So almost like an equal, if not a little bit better, Oracle service, kind of Trojan horse, get it in there, and then, hey, here's the rest of our services that potentially you can start to work on.
Yeah, because what we realized was not everybody might be ready at this time, and we're talking about all timing, right? Of when does the market catch up? They might not be ready to store all the data on us, but if we have a killer product that uses our, the power of the network, then that's at least something that's in there. And then once they're in there, they can be like, hey, what else can Bluzelle do? Oh, we can do this, this, this on it.
Are there any grants or anything for just like Bluzelle that like you guys are like helping people that come to you and say, hey, I just want to build something fresh, completely decentralized out there? I mean, are you guys doing anything like hackathons or anything along those lines to kind of bring the developers in to say like, hey, start from scratch with us?
Yeah, so we're definitely going to be doing hackathons. We've been doing some bounties and grants, small wise, for the past year, but we're just, we're trying to hire up new people so they can actually manage some of that funnel flow, because we have, money in a treasury set aside specifically to give to developers and grants to build something and earn something. And we really want to push that hard for this year.
Cool. Well, I think that would be really helpful in, bringing some people on board and getting stuff from, scratch, because I think it's so important, like I was saying, in our space to kind of, like you were saying, on something like a decentralized Twitter, right? That has to be started from scratch. And so maybe the next, developer that's doing that is playing Roblox right now with, both of your kids and is going to now create the next decentralized social media app out of who knows.
Yeah, I mean, anything can happen nowadays, especially with these kids.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Pavel,
my son's making more than me building Discord bots right now.
He definitely can grow a YouTube channel way faster than we can. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, this is super fun, man. I mean, what do you want to leave the audience with? Like, where can people find you? Where can people find Bluzelle? How do they get started? Like, how do they get involved?
Yeah, so the best, obviously, our website, bluzelle.com, gives a lot of information. Following us on Twitter, at Bluzelle HQ. Myself, at Pavel Bains, PavelBains. So that's, the social where we're talking and, the standard stuff. If they want to dive in more and just, ask more deeper questions, I mean, Telegram's always good, but you find that sometimes it gets too noisy and we can't attend to it, where our Discord channel, which links off our website, that can get really into the tech stuff or talk to the team even closer. And also there's a lot of good developers and validators who've gone on there and they'll answer questions and help other people set up their validator nodes. So that's really helpful. I think the stuff to really look forward to right now, I would say in the next 2 months, is a lot of the projects that we're talking about using our oracles being fully integrated, so we can show how those results are and benchmark them, and people are excited about that. Also look forward to, like I said, our Binance Smart Chain integration and how we can do developers on there. And for the people who are, looking at tokens or holding them, we've got our, some incentivized pools to help on the DEXs, because a lot of our community members are asking that, hey, we need to be on DEXs. A lot of us like to trade there. So, we'll be doing a liquidity pool on PancakeSwap and also Uniswap right now as well.
Great, man. Well, there's a lot you're working on, and congrats on all the success thus far. And it's going to be fun to kind of see all this stuff unfold. So keep up the good work.
Yeah, it seems like a lot, but I mean, you got community. It's like I said, video games. You want to give each person something that they're able to do. So if I'm a holder and I want to believe while I'm working for projects, there's other things I can do with this token and get extra value, whether it's collecting NFTs, win some rewards, developer grants, things like that. So you want to give something to everybody, so you just keep the ecosystem going and engaged.
Amazing. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining. Bluzelle.com. Follow Pavel. Get in there. And then, John, as always, it's been real. Pavel, we'll talk to you backstage, buddy.